Welcome everyone, and welcome to Africam4Good, brought to you by explore.org. Thanks for joining us today. We will be having a little discussion on flamingos and their conservation. Today I'm joined by the Venerable Ernst Retief from BirdLife South Africa, and he is the head of flamingos. So it's a great pleasure to have him on the show today to discuss one of Africa's and the world's most recognized birds, flamingos. Hi Ernst, how are you this morning?
Hi Russell, thanks. I'm great, and thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our great pleasure, as I said, Ernst. So first and foremost, we've got your dogs talking to us in the background. That's good. Morning, doggies. That's all right. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Ernst, and what you do.
Yes, so I'm extremely privileged that I work for BirdLife South Africa. I have done so for the last 12 years. And I'm part of our science innovation program. So we aim to develop innovative products to help and conserve the wonderful bird diversity we have in South Africa. So a lot of the work has to do with data and maps and geographic information and stats, which I find extremely interesting. I'm not sure it's everybody's cup of tea. But we really try to be innovative in developing interesting tools, like remote sensing products that we can use to conserve birds. But I also have other duties, and one of them is to support the work at Campus Dam and the flamingo work. And we'll chat a little bit more about that today.
You were saying this is, a very scientific background. Is that what you were always interested in? Is that something you always looked at becoming, or you always a scientist? How did you get into this field?
I worked for many years in government, actually in the social environment field, and then 12 years. But I've always had interest in birds from school days, and you can see from my grey hair that's been many years ago. And but yeah, I've always watched birds, always been interested in the science around birds and so on. And then 12 years ago, I had the opportunity to join BirdLife. So I've, for a very long time, worked within the Important Biodiversity Areas program, which I will talk a little bit more about later. And then about 2 years ago, I moved to the Science Innovation Program. But yeah, I always had a love for maps and for geographic information systems and IT and remote sensing products and so on. So yeah, I'm in a field now that I really, really like and I believe can make a big contribution.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think that everyone agrees with that things are really looking great at Campus Dam. But I think many people out there will not know too much about BirdLife and BirdLife South Africa. Can you tell us a little bit about what the organization does?
Yes, so BirdLife South Africa is part of the larger BirdLife family. So BirdLife International is based in the UK, and we're one of the many countries or partners of that large network of bird conservation organizations. So our main aim is to conserve birds and their habitats. As you know, the best way to conserve birds is to conserve their habitats, just as we're trying to do at Campus Dam. And we're trying to do this through science-based programs, but also by encouraging people to enjoy and value nature. As you all know, that conservation is sometimes more about people than about the animals. And so it's really important for us to work with people and try and get them to understand what we're doing and their responsibilities with regard to conservation and so on. So we have various programs, and each one of them manages various activities. So we, for instance, got programs that look at our terrestrial bird species. Then we've got a very active seabird program that look at our seabirds and various conservation projects around our seabirds. We've got an education program. We also try and develop a lot of work or develop aviatourism in South Africa, and there we train community bird guides, local community members, and we train them to be bird guides for people that come and visit South Africa. So yes, we've got lots of programs. We're extremely lucky that we in South Africa have more than 850 bird species, which is quite a lot. But it's also the sad truth that more than 120 are threatened globally. So we've got our work cut out to try and conserve them. and the lesser and greater flamingo that we're going to talk about are two of those species. So we work really hard to try and make sure that these birds will be with us for many years to come.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's a great company, and I've known about them for years as a safari guide, you know, and all the information that we've been able to garner from BirdLife is just amazing. And as you say, with so many bird species here and the whole tourism sector, I know that, you know, your Twitchers, those who are the excited bird watchers, you know, love coming to South Africa to get some, you know, lifers, first time sightings of certain bird species, and it's a really, really important place for AV tourism, as you say. So yeah, that sounds incredible. How did BirdLife get involved with Campus Dam, with the flamingos?
So we've got a long history with Campus Dam. My own involvement started a few years ago, in about 2013-14. So as I indicated earlier, I worked within our Important Bird and Biodiversity Areas program. So maybe just to quickly explain, BirdLife International manages a program called the IBA program, as we know it in short, or the Important Bird and Biodiversity Areas program, which is basically a program where we identify sites which are important for the conservation of birds at the global level. So we had an IBA directory that was published in the late 1990s, but in 2012, 2013, we decided to revise our current IBA directory. And as Campus Dam is an IBA, or was always recognized, we had to revisit the site, looked at the numbers of birds there, and then also updated the text in our IBA directory. So we did that, and so I'm glad to say that Campus Dam is still an IBA, and we support the work at Campus Dam because of this important, you know, the value of the site to the conservation of not only flamingos but all water birds in South Africa. So also recently, the IUCN created a new category called key biodiversity areas, which not only look at birds but also other taxa, which is similar to IBAs but just a little bit different. And we are now involved to try and declare Campus Dam also as a key biodiversity area according to the new IUCN standards. And then the last year we established a local conservation group at Campus Dam. So a local conservation group is where we get role players that's involved at the site together in one group with the intent to coordinate research activities, to coordinate conservation actions, and just help, you know, to conserve, you know, the species at that specific site. So ICAPA, Minerals, government, the local university are all role players that serve on this local conservation committee. And as I said, through this committee, we try and guide the conservation actions at the site.
Wow, sounds like a huge project. I'm sure a lot of people involved. But as you say, so worth it, looking at that beautiful picture behind you that I can see. You know, for those of us out there who, you know, not too sure how to tell them apart, you know, where there are lesser and greater flamingos at the site, how do you tell them apart?
Yes, so it's quite easy. I think most people know what a flamingo look like, and as you see in the picture in the background, you can see what they look like. But we do have lesser and greater flamingos in South Africa, and it could be, you know, a little bit difficult to distinguish them from each other. So as the name suggests, the lesser flamingo is quite a bit smaller than the greater flamingo, and I've got some stats just out of interest. A lesser flamingo is about 1.18 meters high and weighs about 1.7 kilograms, while the greater flamingo is about 30 centimeters larger. It's about 1.55 meters and weighs about a whole kilogram more, about 2.7 kilograms. So if they stand next to each other, it is quite easy to see this difference in size. So it is quite easy then to distinguish between them. But when you look at them from a longer distance, further distance, then it is not always easy to see the size difference. And then it's good to look at the bill color. So lesser flamingo has a dark maroon bill. It looks like sort of blackish when you look at it from afar, while the greater flamingo has a light pink bill, and that you can also quite easily see. And that is sometimes the easiest way to distinguish the two birds. Lesser flamingos are also much more pink, But that differs throughout the year, breeding season. So there's not always a clear distinction, but especially in breeding season, lesser flamingos got a beautiful pink color, while greater flamingos are mostly white. Also, just want to note that lesser flamingos, when the chicks are small, they are sort of brown-white in color, and they keep that color for the first year. They only obtain the pinkish colors when they are about 1 year old. So actually in the photograph in the background, you can see those little birds that look like brownish colors birds. So these are immature birds. It's young birds. And then the pink birds has got much larger, but also a different color.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's quite helpful. So the bill and the size are really the easiest identifying factors from distance, I think. Yeah. Okay. Ernst, we were talking a little bit about Camphus Dam as a whole, that it's, of course, not just flamingos in the area. What other birds and creatures at Camphus Dam, are around that the people are, or the conservation organizations like yourself are looking at protecting?
Yes, it's a really important question. So Camphus Dam is known for its flamingos, but it's actually, as I said, an IBA for not only the flamingos, but because it's an important site for the conservation of water birds. So far, we've identified over 63 water bird species at the site, and these includes various ducks, coots, sandpipers, even also migratory sandpipers and waders and so on. So this site on a regular basis hosts more than 20,000 water birds, and I hope through the Africam, that the viewers will not only look at the flamingos, but that we will also be able to see all these other water birds, that moves between the flamingos and so on. So there's lots of ducks, lots of coots, and lots of other water birds. For instance, Makua duck, which is also a threatened bird species, can sometimes be seen there. Great. There's really small grapes, various types of grapes can be seen at the site. And as I said, also green shanks and sandpipers and so on can be seen at the site. So we've got the Southern African Bird Atlas project in South Africa, which is a citizen science project to collect bird distribution data. And during the lifetime of this project, we've already recorded more than 200 bird species in the vicinity of Camphus Dam. So Camphus Dam also plays an important ecological role to support the larger bird community. It's situated in the Northern Cape, on the border of the Northern Cape and Free State, which is quite a dry area. So Camphus Dam plays a really important role to provide water to a lot of other bird species. So yes, it's an exciting place for many reasons, and not only for the flamingos that are there.
That's amazing. I had no idea there were so many different species that you would get in such a small location. As you say, very much a almost desert location, certainly semi-arid location that you guys are looking after there. So yeah, I think for all of us with the cameras going in, it'll be nice to look out for some of these different bird species and not just
absolutely.
So thanks for that, Ernst. For yourself, looking at the area from a conservation point of view, what do you think are the major threats flamingos face at Camphus Dam?
Yes, so it's a beautiful area, but unfortunately there are some serious threats to this area. And the most significant threat is water quality and flooding. So there's nearby sewage works that water feed into Camphus Dam, and unfortunately the sewage works are not always working as they're supposed to, and a little bit dysfunctional, and that can lead that they pump water that's not treated into the dam, and that can lead to high nitrates and phosphate levels in the water, which is not great for the birds. Also, flamingos, and all the bird species actually sometimes, or let me explain it this way, sometimes the area can become flooded. So they can maybe pump too much water or into the dam, and that then means that a lot of the foraging areas that are used by the sandpipers, the waders, and the flamingos get flooded, and then these birds will move off and so on. Other issues that that we need to deal with is that Campus Dam is not just outside of Kimberley, a town in the Northern Cape. And Kimberley is getting larger and larger. And so urbanization is a little bit of a threat. There's also a road that runs past Campus Dam. And although I don't think it's got a massive impact currently on the waterbird population in Campus Dam, we do get that birds get killed by traffic and so on. And there's also a rail track running next to the property, and sometimes the birds will collide with the power lines, or not necessarily power lines, but the lines above the railway tracks and so on. So we've put up flappers and so on to try and minimize the collision risk. But yeah, there are quite a number of these threats that we need to deal with. And that's why we're so excited about our local conservation group, which will help us to address some of these issues and so on.
Yeah, as you said, that sounds like a lot to deal with, and having all those different factions looking in and helping to look after them. Hopefully, that will lead to stories coming out of the area. You know, I chatted to one of your other colleagues in the industry, or not in the industry, no, this, and she was telling us all about how the different communities coming together have created a huge awareness around Campus Dam that perhaps was never there before, certainly on a national level. So I think pretty exciting for what we can see coming through there in the future. So thanks for that, Ernst. I know from time to time, certainly for me, Campus Dam is the area where I've seen the most flamingos, but down here in Cape Town, we see them occasionally too. Are there other places in South Africa where you can get, let's say, large numbers of flamingos together?
Absolutely. So one of the characteristics of flamingos is that they do move around a lot. So they move to where food is available, and there's records of birds that have flown thousands of kilometers, birds that have been ringed or fitted with tracking devices and so on. So they move around a lot. So even at Campus Dam, you at certain points of the year or time might only see a few hundred birds, and then at other days, other times you will find thousands of birds. And that's true for the rest of the country also. So if you travel through the Free State province, there's a lot of small pans in the Free State. And sometimes you will not see a single flamingo there. And suddenly, if the conditions are right and there's food, then there will be hundreds of flamingos at that specific pan and so on. So as you say, the Western Cape is, the estuaries there is an important site for flamingos. So yeah, they do occur all over, not all over South Africa, but in a large part of South Africa. And as I said, they do move around. Numbers fluctuate, but you can see them at a lot of the pans in the Free State and also in the Western Cape.
Okay, awesome. Well, maybe some folks get lucky out there and can spot some in their local neighborhood down here in South Africa. For yourself, Ernst, for our viewers, what's been your most memorable experience with the flamingos so far?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I've got a privilege to visit Campus Dam about every month or two, and each time I go to Campus Dam and view the flamingos, there's always something interesting to see, or they look a little bit different, because they change colors during the year and so on. So it's difficult to say. But, to link to the previous question, what's so surprising to me is how they sometimes just can pitch up in large numbers at a certain site. For instance, a few years ago, you will know that we had quite a drought in South Africa. And I visited Bloemhof Dam, where we usually would not see lesser flamingos or lesser or greater flamingos. And I had to visit the site for other reasons. And because of the low water levels, there were suddenly thousands of flamingos at Bloemhof Dam. And I was quite surprised that the managers of the reserve were so happy with suddenly having all these flamingos at their property. And I think that's one of the nice things about flamingos, that they can just pitch up in large numbers, at the strangest places. So I really enjoyed that specific thing that happened. But yeah, as I said, every time I visit Campus Dam, I always enjoy watching them and see what they're up to.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that little story. And yeah, I mean, I feel the same. Every time I've seen them in numbers, in any large numbers, it really is incredible. Just the color and that regal shape that they have. It's certainly one of my favorite bird species to see. Getting it back to the cameras and things, and our cameras going into the area, what do you think our viewers watching the live cameras can expect to see or get excited about seeing in the near future?
Yes, I think there's quite a lot. So these birds are very interesting. They've got an interesting method to feed. They will dip their heads into the water and, sort of stand with their bills, the wrong way up, if I can put it that way, to filter the water through their bills. So that's very interesting, just to watch them, how they do that. Also, and I really hope we can see this, is the courtship display. This is where these birds move in large groups in the same direction, and they will flap their wings, synchronize sort of wave, flap their, extend the wings and retract the wings and move their heads from one side to the other. It's just amazing to see these birds doing it together as part of the courtship display. And this should happen actually in the next few months. And I hope that as soon as the cameras is up, that this is one of the things that we will be able to see. For that will just be absolutely amazing. Then we hope to get some breeding attempts at Campus Dam. So Campus Dam is not the main breeding spot for flamingos in Africa. There are larger sites in Botswana and higher up in Africa. But they on occasion do breed at Campus Dam. That would just be fantastic if they built their little mounts, at one of the sites near the camera. And if we then can view how they, breed, we will be able to see the egg on the nest and how they raise the chicks and so on. So that to me would be absolutely perfect if we can manage to see that. But yes, then as I said, there's also a lot of other water birds that we can see. And it would be really nice to see how many of these birds, other water bird species, we can identify through the Africam. But yes, I'm very excited for. I think there's a lot of things that we can see that would be very interesting.
Yeah, me too. That sounds really cool. I'm excited now myself. Maybe we can do a little viewer competition of how many species we can identify in the next few months once the cameras are up. So thanks for that, Ernst. Lastly, let's just dive into a tough one maybe. But what is your message to those watching out there about bird conservation? Let's look at Africa as a whole.
Yeah, look, working at an organization like BirdLife South Africa, it's sometimes difficult. We get so much bad news, and every scientific paper show declines in bird species and bird numbers and so on. But we just need to continue, try and do our best to conserve these bird species. I can't imagine a country or any place, without flamingos, for instance. It would be such a loss to us as humanity if we don't have flamingos anymore, and our children and grandchildren and so on can't see flamingos. And that's why I'm so excited about a project like Africam, where we can introduce the species to a global audience, where we can tell people about these wonderful birds, about the threats that they face, and maybe get more help as to how to conserve them. For flamingos, as you mentioned, it's not only a South African bird species; it's a species that occur all over Africa, and what's happening in the rest of Africa also impact the birds at the Campus Dam, for they move up and down Africa and so on. Which I suppose is part of the problem of conserving birds. They move around, they move over long distances, and that makes it difficult to conserve them. We can do everything right maybe at Campus Dam, but if that doesn't happen in the rest of the distribution, then we still got a problem at Campus Dam. But yeah, we need to be positive, and that's why, as I said, why I'm so excited about this opportunity for Africam, so that we can use that to tell the world about this wonderful bird species, the site, about all the ducks and other birds that we can get there. And we really need to get excited about these birds, raise awareness. And if we do that, we've already done a lot to conserve these bird species.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree, Ernst. I think, just getting these pictures out there and as you said, just building awareness in general in conservation always does so much just to start taking steps in the right direction. We've seen such positive stories with things like that. If you think of, whale populations 100 years ago and where they were, some awareness going out to the rest of the world, and now, we're seeing increasing whale numbers all over the world in all the oceans. So
Absolutely.
there are good things and are positive things, and I'm excited about Africam at Compass Dam. So thank you for joining us today, Ernst. It's been a great pleasure having you on the show. I look forward to getting back down to the Flamingos and see all your great work in person again. So yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Russell. It was great, and I hope that everybody will enjoy the Flamingos at Compass Dam.
Thank you. And thank you all once again for watching the show. Please join us again next week for Africam4Good, brought to you by explore.org. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay informed for any of our upcoming shows. But from all of us here in the studio, it's cheers for now.